Hey everyone, and welcome to KFVS Streaming. I'm Jeff Cunningham. This is Convos with Cunningham. Today I'm joined with Cord Dombrowski, who is a local businessman and the driving force behind Dalhousie Golf Club. Cord, thanks for coming in.
Thank you for the opportunity. Glad to be here.
So, as we talked a little bit before we came on, I just find the whole thing interesting from start to finish on how Cape got a course like Dalhousie, which is a great course, and it's always seems to be in the top 10 best public courses of Missouri. Tell me how that all started. You know, we already had some really good golf courses in the area. We still do.
Sure.
What made you think that we needed something like Dalhousie?
Well, at the time, we got to go backwards, probably in the mid-'90s at this point. And the opportunity came up. I learned a little bit about golf, having been in the turf grass business in Texas with some people who were very prominent in the golf business. Everybody would know who that gentleman was. And then it was like the thoughts just evolved, and then he talked to a few people and said, well, that'll never work. And then I kept researching and looking around and finally got to the point of doing a feasibility study with the National Golf Foundation. They're based in Florida.
So let me back you up just for a second. What was it that made you, when people were telling you it'll never work, things like that, what was your vision? You thought, no, this area can use what?
Well, at that point in time, I was on the fringes of the golf business, being in the turf part of golf down in Austin, and had my eyes and ears open, and it was a very engaging experience and around people who really knew the business. And that was kind of made me think, well, maybe we can do that in southeast Missouri, particularly Cape Girardeau.
Was there another course that you had seen that you thought, man, we should do something like this?
Not really. I think the impetus was thinking more regional than colloquial, not thinking that Cape Girardeau could use another golf course. It was trying to envision the attraction for a regional golf facility, perhaps. Back then, we all played better golf in our mind than we do in reality, and
Still do,
still.
in my case.
And I thought I had some game at the time, and we would try and qualify different places for state amateur, USGA events and things, and so I got to meet a lot of people in and around our area, and across the river for that matter as well. And that's where the thought was there's no real place that regional golfers kind of call, this is where we typically play from. So it started with that. And then ideas around that particular seed were planted and thought that, well, maybe now's the time. And
So where did you get the idea, or did it just present itself that it would be built where it's built, out south and
well, that came well into the research phase. And Pat Evans and I were very close. And we raised our kids together out there on the property when they were running around doing crazy stuff. And we kind of talked between us, well, wouldn't it be nice if we could do it? Well, yeah, sure, that would be nice. I think time went by, things changed, and the opportunity presented itself from my perspective with success we had in our other businesses, and it lined up with Pat's position in life at the time. And so we talked and talked and talked, and so we struck a handshake agreement that let's evaluate this. So in the meantime, I had the feasibility study going on, so let's wait to see what that says. It came out very favorable. So we said, well, maybe now's the time. And he wasn't quite ready, and things all about timing is important. So we acquired a farm on the other side of the interstate, north of town, out around where 5H Ranch used to be, and bought that and had our eyes on another piece of property. And I knew that at some point we could talk seriously with Pat. And so we started implementing the feasibility study, doing further research, brought some golf people in town from Dallas that were part of the Crenshaw family, and it started with that. And
So it's a long process.
oh my goodness, yeah, like I say, it's probably started in 96 or 7, and then we finally decided on the parcel of property where the facility is now, and it took a little bit of time to get all that worked out, and then went through the hiring of an architect firm.
So let's talk about that, because that's
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah.
You said you had Ben Crenshaw's
Yeah.
people out,
Yeah.
who, of course, won the Masters a couple times. We ended up, it's a Nicholas design
Right,
course.
right.
How does that all work? Are they, are you going to them and you're like, hey, we'd like you to design our course? I'm sure they get that a lot.
Yeah.
Or, are they on board immediately? They have to come look at the land. How does the whole process work?
It's very fascinating, and it still is looking back on it, having the chance to reflect on how we got from there to here. And the business side of golf is a lot different than golf, and as well it should be. But I was like I mentioned before, was in the turf grass business with Ben Crenshaw and some of his associates in Austin, and learned a lot from him, not necessarily about golf, but about business part of golf. And so he was still playing at the time when we decided to do this. And he and his design partner, Bill Core, were just getting started. They were doing 1 or 2 projects at a time because Ben was still playing. So the timing of this came up. We were ready. We had acquired the land from Pat at Elmwood, and the feasibility was positive, and we were ready to go. And so they had some issues with permitting at a project in Long Island, and the timing of this and that, and it could have been a couple years delay. So through the courtesy of Ben and his staff in Dallas, through Crenshaw Golf, they came up, talked, learned a lot. This is what I would do if I were you type conversations. And at that point, we understood Ben could not do it at that time, or we had to wait and throw us back in timing 4 or 5 years perhaps. So the decision was what do we do? So the choices, without going into all the details, led us to the Nicholas firm down in Palm Beach. And so now we're in the fall of 99 at this point. And so Mr. Nicholas, and even though we're fairly close in age, anybody that's got 6 green jackets, you still call him Mr.
Yeah, I
You
get
got
it.
to.
He
So,
came out?
And so we talked, went down and visited,
Yeah.
back and forth. And he was turning 60 that coming January. So Nicholas Design was in a transition phase. They were trying to drive business to the boys, raise Mr. Nicholas's signature fees to a certain level, and this and that. And so we had a leg up on kind of knowing where we wanted to go, how we're going to do it, et cetera. So we felt like we didn't necessarily want or need a Nicholas Design facility. We just needed, our signature course just needed a Nicholas Design facility. So that proceeded. We struck a deal, signed a contract, and that was in fall of 99. And we started construction in April of 2000.
So they come out, just run me through this.
Yeah.
They come out, and which Nicholas is it? Is it Gary? Which son?
We had to pick one of the boys.
Yeah.
And they're all nice fellas,
Right.
nice young men. And the only reason I went down the line is, well, we'll take Gary because he was playing on the tour at the time.
Right.
I thought
Yeah.
if he had a career like his father and the golf course turned out good, that could be a nice synergy.
So they come out, and you've got a kind of a blank slate, right?
Yep.
And are you and other people with Dalhousie, are you involved in it, or do they look and they're like, like hole 7, for instance, it's the snake hole, which is a great hole. Do they see that immediately, or did you,
Well, the process is what was to our advantage and to a certain extent to their disadvantage is we had 900 acres, which is a lot of land.
Right.
And typically your golf course back then, if you had 150 acres, 60, 170 acres would be plenty.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, it was easier for an architect to say, this is my palette, and these are my options. Let's get the best we can.
Almost has too much.
Oh, so now you've got a palette
Yeah.
of, 4 or 5 times, and it was like, where do we go, where do we go? And so you got to eventually settle in on a parcel of that area, which they focused in on. So then you through engineering, you get surveys at 2 foot intervals on your property. And then you look at that on your plat, then you go to the site with that, and you find a starting point on your map, and you kind of wiggle through. And then what you find on site is nothing you see on paper.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a low, there's rocks, there's a big tree, there's things are in your way. And so it evolves from that process, and then you come back and you make sketches, and it's almost like landscaping your yard. And let's see if the roses would look better over here than over there. Eventually, that's how it works without getting down into the weeds. And
Literally
then,
weeds, yeah.
Then you go, once you settle in on a basic route, and you go back to the site, and then you put a PVC pipe in the ground where the tee kind of could be, another one in the landing area of the fairway, another one on the green. And then you kind of look at that, and eventually you feel, well, that's close. So then you cut a corridor from those 3 pieces of pipe to kind of open up the eyesight from the peripherals and look down that alley. And then you start wiggling, tweaking from there. And then you go back to paper and you start drawing abstract golf holes on the actual map.
So, I mean, the process is really long. It's
very much so.
And very detailed. So, what would Dalhousie has a distinct look to it, I would say. Was that what you were going for?
Exactly. It couldn't have ended up any better.
And what was that? What is that look?
And, well, there's lots of adjectives in today's industry. Some of it is called minimalist. You kind of take what's there, and then the extreme would be what Whistling Straits is. That was just a flat piece of property. They moved several million cubic yards of dirt to build those golf courses, and it looks good. But it's a function of manpower and money is what you can create. So we had a pretty good thought of what we were wanting to do.
Was there a golf course that you were emulating, like a look from any other place?
Well, if you wanted to find a look, I grew up on the East Coast in Wilmington, Delaware, Philadelphia area, and that's a birthplace of a lot of great architects. Seth Rayner was cut his teeth back there. There's influences of Tillinghast and C.B. McDonald and Donald Ross, of course, and on and on and on. So I remember as a kid certain things that kind of suited to my eye, and we kind of went with that. And then you ask people who really know what they're doing, does this kind of make sense? Does it work? Does it not work? And a lot depends on what we're in the transition area. As far as weather is concerned, we could have cool season grasses or warm season grasses, just depending what you want to do. All those things aren't in your mind when you're playing golf. But on the business side of it, it's a big deal.
Yeah, you want it to be open as much as possible.
So we kind of communicated with the Nicholas folks about the concept. Here's what we're trying to focus in on. And not that we didn't want a typical Nicholas golf course. I mean, nowadays, you can take a picture or look at a slide of a golf course, and you kind of know who the architect was. I mean, it's predictable. And I'm not saying we went against the grain intentionally, but we knew what we were wanting. And Ben and his folks made that suggestion to us as we moved forward into Nicholas, is that don't be afraid to raise your hand and say, no, sir, this is what we're looking for. Because you've got a pretty good idea of what you're wanting, and don't underestimate your ability to communicate what you want. I mean, you're paying for it, so you get what you want.
Did you have a situation like at TPC Sawgrass, the famous island hole that kind of came around, I believe, semi by accident? I think his wife helped him design the course or the hole. Was there a hole at Dalhousie that at first you're like, I don't know. And then it turned out to be whole, I don't know, you know.
Well, that's a good question. And I think the best way to answer that is that we designed the golf course and certain features in the golf course based on influences from other places that we've been to. And I'm a very, very immature student of golf architecture. Anytime I get a chance to read something, I do, and that's been going on. I'll be 78 shortly. It's been going on 70 years almost. And so there are certain things that our land would lend itself to. One example is the 15th hole at North Berwick in Scotland. Is very historic because it was probably the first golf hole designed as what they call a redan, R-E-D-A-N feature, which means there's bold slopes from certain degrees right to left, and things you put in front and on the sides of the green that give you a false impression of distance, whether it be longer or shorter, without going into a lot of detail. So we took the influence of the redan hole at North Berwick as we were designing our 13th hole at Dalhousie. And you don't want to mimic. I mean, we've all been on too many places where you can see the developer. Well, I saw something. I want one of those I saw on TV.
Mm-hmm.
I want the church pew bunkers like at Oakland. Well, that doesn't necessarily work. So
13's a par 3.
Par 3. Yeah, we took just the influence of what was done hundreds of years ago at North Berwick and tried to take that influence in designing our 13th hole. So as you evolve with the routing and features and what the land provides you, you take those influences and come up with what you've got.
What would you say, and I have my own opinion,
Yeah.
what's the hardest hole at Dalhousie
Well,
and why?
you got to define that by who's holding the golf club.
Yeah, well,
You know, whether it's an elite amateur,
yeah.
you know, a professional, or
That's a good point, yeah.
a club member. So it takes different.
I was going to say
takes a different
17
approach.
because your
Well,
approach into
that's a good point,
17,
yeah.
for
And-
me, is always really long.
And the best answer, I think, is whatever hole provides you the most rewarding par if you make a par on it.
Yeah,
17 is a good example.
yeah.
I think 12 is a good example because it's the only green complex on the golf course that you can't see the green surface from the fairway.
That's a
And
great
so
hole.
it's really just, I trust my shot, trust my yardage, and and it's a shallow green. So that's two examples. But I think generally speaking, it's what's the most rewarding par that you make depending on your ability.
That's a good
Yeah.
a good answer. So for those who don't know, and for me as well, Dalhousie, the name. Now I haven't been out, but isn't there's a house out there, right?
Well,
Was it-
the original
Yeah.
homestead that Gibney and his wife Rebecca Ramsey built. They had a big family. I can't remember exactly, 5 or 6 kids. And every time I went out there with Pat, bringing friends or guests, and he would tell stories about what he knew of the property as I'm getting to it. And I teased him afterwards. It's like 1/3 of what he talks about is true. 1/3's embellishment, and 1/3's folklore.
Yeah.
And some of those things would change places. So that's my understanding of the beginning, and that was built with clay bricks that were honed on the property. And
The house is still there.
it is still there,
Yeah.
and his Cheryl, his wife, is still around, and she resides there, and one of their 3 sons kind of a caretaker of the property. But back in the very beginning, again doing on research. I'm always high on research. We looked at the Gibney name and the Ramsey name, and all the research kind of led more towards the Ramsey side than the Gibney side, and determined that there was great influence of the Ramsey family clan, as they call it over there, around Edinburgh, Scotland, on the east side. And there is the original Dalhousie Castle.
Hmm.
And over there, they pronounce it Dalhousie.
Hmm.
Now, it's a little difficult for us Americans to say, so we kind of slur it into Dalhousie.
Yeah.
And
Dalhousie.
Yeah. And it was always originally referred to as the Ramsey Castle, and over time, now you're going back to the 12th century, you know, and now it's the Dalhousie Castle, and it's still in existence. I think it's a bed and breakfast / museum now. And then digging further into that Ramsey name over there, when I was over there studying this through the British Golf Museum, there's all kinds of information there. There was a slight interest in golf from the Ramsey family, in the sense that the property that Carnoustie Golf Links was built on at one point was part of the Ramsey holdings. And it went on and on and on. And golf was taking a different life back then, and the rules of golf were written, and Muirfield moved from Musselburgh to the coast, and then had enough room to build 18 holes, and they say, well, we're going to write the rules. And if you're going to be a legitimate championship course or venue, you got to have 18. Well, St. Andrews had 22, and Prestwick had 12. And so in order to comply, that's when everything started to become standardized. So based on that, we had determined through research that the Ramsey family had some influence, albeit providing land to the golf business back then. And in 1868, the Dalhousie / Dalhousie Golf Club was formed in and around Carnoustie. And golf clubs back in those days were kind of like service clubs here, Lions Club, Kiwanis Club. You'd have a group of people who had a common interest, and they met at a certain building, and then they went elsewhere to play golf. So in 1868, the Dalhousie Golf Club was formed. And the reason it was formed is that those 22 fellows had a keen interest in making Carnoustie golf links better and in compliance with what was going on in and around St. Andrews and that area.
And it must have worked, because it's one of the most famous
no question.
courses, yeah.
And so it actually, it to this day sits on Dalhousie Road, Carnoustie.
Now, did you have to go and ask them, is it cool if we build a Dalhousie in
So once
Missouri?
we determined all that through that research, I reached out and contacted the captain of the Dalhousie Golf Club, explained to him who I was, what we're doing, and led into communication back and forth, went over there, visited, and all that stuff, and politely asked if permission if we would be able to use the name for all the right reasons, and we would be referred to as Dalhousie Golf Club USA, and their club formed in 1868 would be Dalhousie Golf Club UK. And we have a relationship to this day. A lot of communication back and forth when our members travel over there. We make arrangements. And so that's how the Dalhousie name came about.
What was it like for you? I'm going to fast forward a little bit just in the sense of time, but what was it like for you when you first were able to play the course, or play some of the course even? Maybe it wasn't all done yet. Do you remember what that was like? Was that really rewarding? Did you start on one? Was one the first hole?
It took various iterations of routings, of course, and you've trying to settle in on. I mean, there were 100 holes out there. That would have been great. So once you settle in on the routing, and you do the clearing, as we said a little while ago, so you can look at your sight lines, and then you really start working on construction. Say, this is where we're going to be. And so as that was being cleared up, we started on one, and took mats out there, and we'd hit golf balls. And some of the construction staff and some of the architecture firm staff, we would measure carries. And it was Gary and myself, and he hit it significantly further than I did at the time. So we would measure my carry, measure his carry, and determine landing areas. And he did that all the way through the golf course. And then And then I think one of the more interesting things is that you just don't tee off here and hit your ball there in the middle of the fairway. From the design and construction perspective, you have shelves and rolls, and from the design perspective, you try and create the landing area in such a way that you want the ball to end up where you want it to end up, not where it lands. So like on one, for instance, if you can remember, everything kind of works hard right to left.
Oh, I remember.
So you hit it. It was designed for the tee shot to land in the right part of the fairway because it's going to cascade down the hill. And so everything is designed as to where you want the ball to end up. And it's up to the golfer to know how to get there. But if you play golf in Scotland or anywhere, Ireland for that matter, and your caddy's got to figure out how you play. And he'll ask you, do you play a little right to left, left to right, or whatever. But he always gave you a line, like the third chimney from the big white window. That's where you want your ball to end up. It's up to you to get it there. And so with that influence, that's what we work with on the landing areas and the fairways. It's extremely scientific.
Yeah, well,
scientific.
It's interesting because I don't always seem to find those landing areas. I want to know more about how I get it out of some of the trees there on 2 or whatever. But when you finally opened the course and you were able, do you remember when you were able to play the full 18?
Yeah, sure.
That had to have been really rewarding. Do you remember what it was like? What year that was? Was that 02?
We started construction in April 2000, and we started sodding the golf course in July of 2001. And we sodded the fairways and sodded the roughs, grew in, of course, the tees and the greens. And we played our first round November the 10th. It was a Saturday. And because of the freshness of the turf, we didn't have full play. We through collaboration with the Nicklaus folks, we were allowed like 12 rounds on Saturday, 8 rounds on Sunday, whatever, the combination, until we got through the fall and into the following spring.
Yeah, they want everything to grow in correctly.
And get firmed up. And everything looked perfect. So folklore of Dalhousie was that the construction trailer was on where the 8th hole is.
Yeah, I remember.
And so we would congregate there, and there was about 28 of us that signed up, so to speak, to be the first folks that would play the golf course. And we would huddle up around there, and we would chip and putt around the 8th green. And Jack Connell, who was the first person we brought on board, would
still there.
Oh, still there. God love him. And he would make up the little groupings, and then we would walk from 8 green across 7 up to the hill on 6T. 6T. We would play 6T so we can get to 1, and we play our round and finish up playing actually probably 20 holes before we can get back to where we started from on 8. So, but at that point there was obviously no car pass. There wasn't any sand in the bunkers, but the golf course was perfect. And it's like, well, we just can't wait. And so it's almost spiritual, from my perspective, to take, at the courtesy from the other gentleman I was playing with, and let me take the first real shot, to strike that ball and knowing, working backwards, how far back it was when I hit off a mat, and we were measuring carries to dirt. And then work backward from that when we're working on what part of the 900 acres we want this golf course, all the way back to meeting Mr. Nicklaus for the first time, and all the way back to in the feasibility study. And it seemed, in my mind, that it probably took 3 or 4 minutes to put the tee in the ground and take the swing, when in all reality was probably 15 seconds,
Well, you're in a unique position, right? I mean, you're probably one of the few people ever who has started from scratch and ended up with a golf course that then you're playing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty
well,
cool.
It happens a lot, but it is rare. And we were fortunate in a lot of ways. I mean, now it's easy to say that was meant to be and all those, those cliches. But I can remember stuff coming out of the dirt and said, well, this is a good hole, this is a good hole. And before you know it, we had 18 of them. This is really good.
Mm-hmm.
And so what are we going to do with this? And so it evolved from that to where we are today with having 683 members and having a truly national membership. For every member we have that lives in our area, we have 2 that are from somewhere else. Chicago, Dallas, California, 19 different states. It's crazy how and that business model will never work if you wanted it to be that way. It just evolved.
So you also have evolved into, Dalhousie has become the host for a lot of great tournaments, junior tournaments out there, amateur tournaments. How did that, was that always part of the plan?
Absolutely. That was, once I realized what we were going to have or close to it, made the commitment to myself that we were going to support amateur golf in as best way as we can. I remember as a youngster learning how to play, try to compete a little bit, and then it was always hard to find a place to play.
Mm-hmm.
We played at municipal courses, which was fine, and then looking back over that and being in the position, I found myself being very fortunate. We made a commitment, and the staff bought into it, and we were going to do as much as we could for junior golf and for sure amateur golf as we can. And we've held everything from USGA events, 4 or 5 USGA qualifiers, all the way down to, we had a Notre Dame high school event on Monday. I don't know how many young kids were out there playing, but to sit back in your cart and watch all those kids, some of them were fairly accomplished and others kind of struggled, but having the opportunity, some of them, this might be the best golf course they ever play, and some maybe probably not, but I didn't have that opportunity when I was a kid. So everything from the youngsters and high school championships, American Junior Golf Association, we've had 8 or 9 or 10 of those events, and virtually every winner of an AJG event that we've had here is on TV.
Yeah, I played in one of those.
Just amazing.
Seeing those kids at such a young age be so good at golf, wow, it's fun to watch. It's fun to be a part of. Like I said, we're starting to run out of time, but I wanted to ask you a little bit about where things are now. I noticed you guys are making some changes. I'm not complaining about losing that tree on one. Is there what's going on? Are you just making changes? Are they necessary? Are you trying to speed things up?
Every year, Todd Ellis, our superintendent, has been with us from the beginning. We go from the first tee, the 18th green, and look at it from a golfer's perspective, look at it from a maintenance perspective, look at it from an arborist perspective, drip lines from the trees, and we try and make sure we maintain the integrity as it was originally designed. And stuff grows. Trees grow, and if you don't pay attention to it before you know it, it's not the same place. So every year, from day one, we've made that commitment to monitor that. And so now next year will be 25 years into it, and it was time to make, I wouldn't say significant changes, but significant enhancements. Every elite amateur event we've had out here, from all the Missouri Amateur Championships, USGA, the Southern States Juniors, the USGA folks, you get a chart that charts every shot on every hole for all the days of the events, hardest to easiest, and all those, how many birdies, how many pars, how many bogeys, and I still have every one of them. And you look at that, and you somehow, why does 7 play so hard? Why does 11 play so whatever the case is? And then so we're able to chart all that, and then try to make these adjustments from the perspective of the elite player as well as the club player, and not necessarily trying to make it harder or shorter or easier, but trying to make it more enjoyable to play. So golf courses evolve. They should evolve. And unfortunately, a lot of places don't do that, and they may not have the sense of history and tradition that our team does. But that's what we're doing now. And
So, I'm sorry, when you're telling people who are coming for a tournament, say, and they've never played the course, and you're trying to give them a tip, what's the tip?
Well, again, that's another good question. As well as myself, and perhaps a lot of our members, you talk about fellows that play in their first round, that when you read the greens, the break is actually about half of what you're looking at.
That's why you say that. I always overread those greens.
Yeah, and
Always.
I don't know why that is. It's just something that you learn. And when the greens were, the John Garner, who happened to have been in this weekend working on this project with us, I always reflect on him. So you built tremendous greens. There's still places where even in playing it 25 years, it's like you get confused. And the eye cannot detect a 1% grade. It just can't. And so in and around your pinnable areas on the green, the contour is somewhere between 2.5 and 1% grade. Hence the unintentional trickiness of reading the greens. And it's not like you're putting little bumps and humps there and all that. As you know, the greens are fairly benign until you try to putt 'em.
And they're in great shape, always. But I always overread them.
The comments you hear afterwards is that people that come back, they tell their buddies about the greens, and they say that you learn how to putt Dalhousie greens, you don't read them. And it comes just after round 5, round 6, round 7. After a while, you kind of.
Or in my case, however many rounds it's been, I still can't read them. One last question before I let you go, but I just hit me. But 18's unique hole, par 5. And it has, for people who may not know, it has a huge green. It has a green that starts up top and then slopes down to almost like another green.
Yes.
How did that come about? And so sometimes you've got the hole down here with a really tall flag so you can see it, and then sometimes you've got the flag up top.
Right.
And so obviously it makes a huge difference when you're playing that hole. Was that the plan?
Yeah, and how that came about, everything kind of came into place, and we were struggling with the finish. And 15 is a fairly short 5-par, and that could have been a 4-par. 16 was pretty much what it is. 17 could have been a 5-par. It could have been a 4-par. And then 18, we just didn't know how to finish until we decided what to do with 15 and 17. So once we locked in on 15 being a short 5 and 17 being a long 4, we thought now we can make 18, a nice 5-par finish. And so we got talking about it, and I asked the question, why is it that sometimes on the PGA Tour, they always reference that, well, this hole plays as a par 5 for the members, and it's a par 4 for the professionals. And now, I feel like I'm an expert, but I asked that question. So how does that work strategically? Because your fairway bunkers are in the same spot, and all those and green side bunkers are the green size of the green, and so we collaborated with that over dinner one night. And so somehow, among those of us who were there, it's like, well, what are you thinking of? I said, well, maybe we could do one of those. And it was like, well, let's just build 2 greens, have a 4-par green and a 5-par green. So we staked it out, flagged it out, looked at it from the tee. Oh, this might work. And very, very different. And then so the contractor got involved, and somebody again, the group mentioned, well, why don't we just connect them? And so it's a 6% grade. I mean, it's pretty steep.
Yeah.
To go from top to bottom.
Especially if the pin's low and
So-
you hit it up top.
And so the contractor said, I know we can build it, and I don't know how we'll be able to maintain it. You know, how do you get mowers and all that? So that was a collaboration, so we left it. Let's just go finish the golf course. And we came back to it. And so what you see now came from those conversations. So it's basically 100 yards from the front collar to the back collar.
It's an interesting hole.
Oh, it is very much so.
Yeah, and like you said, that slope is crazy. If the pin's low and
Yeah,
you happen to
yeah.
be, for whatever reason, up top, I mean, two-putting that
Yeah, oh,
is quite the feat.
yeah.
Well,
so-
we could keep talking about
Oh,
this.
absolutely. We'll do it again
Yeah,
sometime,
for
yeah.
sure, but we're running out of time. But my thanks to Court Dombrowski for coming in today to talk one of my passions, which is golf. And as you have been listening, one of the main people behind what has turned into to be a gem here in Southeast Missouri. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. Until next time, I'm Jeff Cunningham signing off.